Hey, it's Paulicia Aguilard. I'm so excited that you are here. Happy Thursday, thankful Thursday. If you are tuning in and you're listening, you can hear me. Put a one and a two in the comments because I am so excited and so passionate. I need to know that you're tuned in and that you are just as excited about life and just everything that's going on right now at this time. So, I have some great news for you. And if you hang in there with me, I'm going to give that to you in just a second. But today I wanted to come in here and talk to you quickly about establishing healthy boundaries and what that looks like. So before we begin, I want you to first of all take a deep breath because you might be busy. This might be a busy time for you. So we're just going to take a moment just to pause and just take a deep breath. Okay. Now, that is one of the things that I actually love to do. And taking a deep breath or a pause actually just brings things to a close and a slow down that we need. Sometimes when we're just going from thing to thing, we're moving, we just need to be able to breathe and sort of tune in and listen in. So there's nothing specific that you have to do in this moment, but just listen and just breathe. So, today, in talking about healthy boundaries, I want you, first of all, to do this for me. What is your internal weather report? If I were to ask you, what season would you choose to decide how to describe how you're feeling today? What would that look like for you? Well, for me, today, my weather report is sunny. I will say that it's sunny just because I'm excited, even though July has kicked off to be very busy. My goodness, we're already getting to the middle of the month. Can you believe it? I've actually experienced some wonderful blessings, and things are just really, even though it's been an adjustment period for myself, things are still good. God is still good. And always, I am just full of light and just enjoying my time here during this summer. So, hopefully, as you are tuning in, you can actually do the same. So, if you're listening in, what would you say your internal weather report would be and why? I'll give you just a moment to think about that and put that in the chat, okay? So I'm Sunny, so you can just call me Sunny for today. I don't know what it'll be like on tomorrow, but in spite of everything that's going on, my positive outlook in what's going on and being able to handle that, I'm going to say that my day today is sunny. Okay, so as we're establishing healthy boundaries, first of all, we have to know what a healthy boundary or what is a boundary. When you hear that, sometimes I get from people that that's something that's negative, and we say, oh, that they're overstepping their bounds or they're not respecting my boundaries. Well, what is a boundary? Boundaries are things that keep us safe, right? So when we're talking about a boundary and establishing a personal boundary for ourselves, that really just means the limits. What can we actually handle during that time? What's going to be most befitting for us that's going to make us or help us to produce the most a positive outcome for ourselves? Now, I want you to think about this as we're talking that as you begin to establish healthy boundaries, that you don't always have to keep it so rigid. So well, if this happened and if they cross me the wrong way, then I'm just not going to talk to them anymore. I'm not going to deal with them anymore. That's not what I mean. I mean that as you continuously grow and things change and you adapt, it's okay to reestablish your boundaries. It's okay to strengthen some areas within yourself that might be a little bit on the side that's not as strong. Okay. And sometimes I get this from clients that I work with, is that I am not good in upholding my boundaries. Typically I try to please people all the time. I'm trying to make sure that, I'm worried about that friendship or that relationship, how they're going to respond if I put my foot down. Well, think about this. If we don't establish those personal boundaries for ourselves, then people can always come in and dictate how we are going to respond, what it is that's on their agenda, what their needs are, instead of putting ourselves first. And you know me, as you have maybe looked at some of my content and looked at some of the things that I put out on my media outlets, is that we have to make ourselves a priority. So that is all setting your healthy boundary means. So today, I want you to think about this. When we are talking about knowing your boundaries, that really means what's important to you. What are your values? If your values are, that you want to be respected, you want to be communicated to in a way that is, not screaming, not yelling, then that is an important boundary that you want to have set for others that you come in contact with. Okay. You also want to make sure that people are taking you seriously. And so, if you don't have limits or you don't have established boundaries, then people that you come in contact with, they're not going to respect those boundaries. So, it really is, what it is that you're wanting to be reciprocated. And so, there are 5 different types of boundaries that I want to talk to you about today. The first one is physical, and that goes without saying. So, when we talk about physical boundaries, we're talking about our personal space. How close can somebody get to you? And so, if you think about yourself as a person that's in the middle, okay, and I was to draw a circle around you, okay, your physical boundary is how close you allow people to get into that circle, right? So somebody that might be a family member, that might be, your child or your spouse or significant other, they might be very, very close in terms of your physical boundary or your physical space. However, there might be other people, colleagues, friends, people that you deal with that's a little bit closer on the outer edge of that circle, okay? And so, again, physical space is how close do you want people to get to you? You have to define what that comfort level is for you. And so, the next boundary that I want to talk to you about is emotional. So, our emotional boundaries, are those things that again, we're setting those limits to. We're letting people know what we have the capacity to be able to handle. And so, again, that might look like when people are trying to ask you to do, hey, can you go run to the store for me? Every time you look up, you're running here, you're running there. One of the things that you can actually do, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later on, is you can actually set that boundary like, hey, if I find myself giving out more, at the end of the day, I feel depleted, then I am actually, that's an indicator right there that I am actually just emotionally exhausted. And so there are some key things that I need to do to establish that emotional boundary. The next one is communication. So again, remember how I said earlier, how somebody talks to you is very important. I know that's a really big one for me in terms of communication, because when you're talking with somebody, if they're yelling or if they're over talking you, or if there's a certain tone that comes across in how they communicate, typically that might make the other person feel shut down or not heard. So you want to make sure that you are setting clear communication boundaries with those that you come in contact with, and there are ways that you can do that. The next thing is mental. So, allowing your personal thoughts and your opinions to be heard, but also knowing that it's okay if someone else disagrees with you. Okay, that would be a healthy boundary. So, if you find yourself mentally you're outputting so much and you find yourself irritable, maybe because people aren't seeing it your way, or they're not typically coming to your side, there's some things there that we can actually do or practice so that that boundary is a little bit strengthened. And the last thing is time. So, how much time are you choosing or are you putting out to yourself as well as to others? And so, those boundaries again could be, ta-da, that's that time management. So, again, how long you're going to dedicate time to a specific task is a time boundary. How we manage our time is so very important, because again, if you find yourself working yourself to the bone and you're not giving yourself that personal time to go and take care of yourself, rejuvenate, then you might find yourself feeling overwhelmed and burned out. Okay. And so I've sort of covered those five boundaries. Let me tell you how you can begin to practice those five boundaries. So the first one is physical. Physical boundaries, what you can actually say, or an example is, could you please take a step back? Okay. Taking a step back again is establishing that physical boundary. If somebody is getting too close to you, that right there is a great example of establishing a physical boundary. The next one we talked about was emotional. So when we're talking about emotional, and we know that we, listen and we support those that we care about, those that we work with, those that we are in relationship with, sometimes it's okay to put the brakes on to say, gosh, I really want to support you, I really want to help you in this, but I just have too much on my plate right now to be able to do that. That again is setting that boundary. What does that do? That lets the other person know that, hey, I'm not available to solve this problem for you, because we're not here just to solve everybody else's problem. Okay. And then the next one is communication. So I gave you that example about the tone. So what is it that you can think of as you're listening here that you might say in communication with somebody if they're yelling, or if their tone is coming across that's making you a little bit uncomfortable? I'll let you put that in the chat. But something that comes to mind for me is, please don't speak to me in that tone. That right there, it puts it right on Front Street. So if somebody is talking loudly, or they're rude talking to you, there are some things that you can say. And actually the example that I gave would be one of the things that just lays it right out there to the front. Okay. The next one is a mental boundary. So an example of this, as I'm looking at my notes, is, I respect your perspective, even though I don't agree with it. Right. So again, that is not saying that, hey, I'm not listening to that other person, but it's okay that I don't agree with that perspective. We can still have a conversation. Okay. And then the last one is that time boundary. Okay. And a lot of times, especially if you're in meetings and you have to be at this one place, or this other place, you can actually say, hey, I only have an hour to dedicate, or I have a hard stop at this specific time. So those are five key examples of how you can actually establish your boundary. And I want to just end with this right here, because as we're talking about establishing boundaries, you can't establish boundaries if you don't have consequences set, right? So think about those five things that I actually stated. If somebody is overstepping those bounds, or they're not actually listening to the boundaries that you set, then we have to begin to get comfortable in establishing what that consequence is going to be. Because why? We're showing that we are important. We're showing that, our time is valuable, and we're practicing great self-care. So, some of the tips that I've given you today is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. I am hosting on August the 18th through the 20th a couples retreat, okay? And it is called the Relax and Restore retreat, that I'm so excited about, in partnership with the San Luis Resort and Spa in Galveston. We are going to have a blast. And so, if you're looking to get more tips on what it is that we're talking about, establishing healthy boundaries, connecting back with your significant other, and really just getting that time to really dedicate back to yourself, we would love to see you there on August the 18th through the 20th. I've put the link in here for you to go and register. We're going to have an amazing time. And so today, if you found this information valuable, I want you to tag your friend and share this link with your other friends, your other couples that would really need some of this information that we're needing. We're not asking that you come out and tell all of your business, but this is actually just a time for you to kick back, relax with the one that you love, and to really hear and just learn some key tips that's going to help you continuously thrive in your relationship. Again, my name is Paulicia Aguilard. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to comment here in the chat. You can also direct message me through Facebook, or also on the other platforms, Instagram, the Ouch Couch on IG, also on LinkedIn. I'm available to you to answer any of your questions. And I'm going to be coming back and talking to you again in part 2 of establishing healthy boundaries. Have a wonderful Thursday.